I know that he is on the call. I do see him on the call, but Sterner, if you could type in the chat that you're here, we'll move on. Vento has not joined us yet.
Darren's here.
Oh, great. Haven't gotten to you yet.
It was also some emergency shit going on where I think
Wolf?
Here.
Zaren's here. Lindstrom
Here.
is here. And I do see Councilmember Sterner is in the listing for attendees. He must be having some audio issues. Thank you very much. Turning it back over to you, Chair.
Okay. Phil, when you get that figured out, just pipe up to let us know that you're able to communicate. And with that, I will call the Environment Committee meeting to order for July 14th, 2020. And so first item is the approval of the minutes from June 23rd, 2020. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Wolf moves approval.
Ray, would you like to second those minutes, that motion?
Would, but Vento sounds like you want to.
Go ahead.
All right.
Okay, June seconds.
Zaren seconds. All in favor, say
Actually,
aye.
roll call.
Roll call. I forgot about that. Roll call.
Sterner?
Aye. Here.
Awesome. Vento?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Zaren? Zaren?
Aye.
Thank you. Lindstrom?
Aye.
Aye.
And Chair Lindstrom, do we need to approve the agenda?
We do need to approve the agenda. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I so move.
Vento.
I heard.
Second.
We'll go with Council Member Vento with Sterner seconding on that one. Roll call, please.
Sterner?
Here.
Vento?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Zaren?
Aye.
Lindstrom?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that takes us to our consent agenda where we have two comp plans that are before us today.
Wolf moves the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Vento seconds.
Seconded by Councilmember Vento. Roll call, please.
Sterner?
Aye.
Vento?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Zaren?
Aye.
Lindstrom?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that takes us to our non-consent business agenda items where we have 4 items, including one which we've covered in the not too distant past, the wastewater rates and charges. And we will be adopting those this afternoon, most likely. Take it away.
All right. Hello, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Matt Selmeyer. I'm the budget manager for environmental services. And it looks like we have a presentation for you today. It looks like it's being pulled up right now. But I'm here to present business item 2020-203, which is the adoption of MCES rates and charges. In addition, I'll be sharing feedback from our customer webinars, which recently took place. I also have Dan Schuler with me today. Dan is a principal financial analyst on the ES finance team. Does an excellent job calculating the specifics for our debt and our SAC program, which I'll be talking about a little bit. And before we jump into the presentation, I would like to point out that the business item has 2020 listed in attachment C, and it should say 2021. This error will be corrected before the business item goes to the council. And I'm going to turn off my video now and just see if the presentation can be pulled up. I think Greg Ritchie's working on that. There it is. Okay, so Greg, can you please go to the next slide? So the proposed action for today is that the Metropolitan Council adopt the wastewater rates and charges outlined on page 1 of the business item to be effective January 1st, 2021. Next slide, please. So for today, we will review the 2021 rate setting schedule and share the results and feedback from our customer webinars. I will also share an executive summary and the sources and uses of our 2021 budget. Our budget has not changed since Ned Smith spoke with you in May, so that will be a quick review mostly. I will then give a quick update on our current debt situation and where we stand in terms of SAC. Next slide, please. Okay, so for our rate setting schedule, the first thing I would like to mention is that we had to adjust our approach in March because of COVID. So we canceled our industrial workshops and we emailed the presentation to our industrial customers. Then on May 12th, Ned brought you an update on our budget and discussed our approach for public meetings. In late May and early June, we ended up having 2 customer forums using WebEx, which I'll go over in more detail on the next slide. So today we are asking you to adopt our wastewater rates for 2021, which will then go to the council for adoption on July 22nd. So this is just the rates we are charging our customers, which is different than the overall budget adoption, which will happen on August 26th when the preliminary budget is adopted. Then later in December, the final budget will be adopted. Next slide, please. Okay, so for our customer webinars, they were very successful this year, and we had the largest attendance in recorded history. So Anna Bessel and the customer service team did a great job setting this up, and I'd like to thank them. And leading up to these webinars, we sent municipal wastewater charge estimates to communities, which is important because it allows them to start building their 2021 budget in May. And specifically, we sent customized rate sheets to each of the 110 communities with their rates and a map of wastewater infrastructure in their area. And then during these forums, we reviewed our overall budget and rates. We shared some of our capital developments in the area. I'd also like to say that we are fortunate to have Chair Zelli attend our May 21st WebEx, and also fortunate to have Chair Lindstrom attend our June 11th WebEx, so thank you. So the forums went very well this year, and I'll share some of the feedback we received on a later slide. Next slide, please. Okay, as you can see noted here, there are no changes since May 12th, but I would like to briefly talk to the regional wastewater charge. Because of COVID, we recognize the need for fiscal austerity. So we trimmed the regional wastewater charge down to a 2% increase. So this is year 5 of our 5-year commitment to keep our rate increases under 4%. And we were initially around a 3.7% rate increase. But as I was meeting with ESET, we felt like we had the ability to help our customer communities and come down to a 2% increase, and also kept our industrial strength and permit fees around that same level. And at the bottom of the chart, you can see that our uses reflect a 3.9% increase, which is more than our wastewater charge increase. And the way we are achieving the 2% increase is to use our reserves. So you might be thinking, can we do that with our reserves? And the answer is yes. In 2016, 2017, and 2018, we had a surplus, which is allowing us to use our reserves now for rate relief. Next slide, please. Okay, moving on to our revenue sources, you can see that we budgeted $323 million in revenue for the year, which is the same as we reviewed on May 12th. The largest piece is our municipal wastewater charges, followed by the transfer from SAC and our industrial waste charges. We also have a small bit of other revenue from an OPEB or employee benefit adjustment and taking $2 million from the reserves. Again, there are no changes from May 12th and really no major changes from a percentage standpoint from previous years. Next slide, please. Our uses are $323 million, and again, that's the same as was reviewed on May 12th. Our debt and salaries make up a little more than 70% of our operating costs, and it's spread pretty evenly after that for the other costs. One noteworthy item is that the other category is a bit less than you might have seen in previous years because we don't have any major pass-through grants budgeted for I&I this year, and we're hoping to get I&I grant funding in the future from the next legislative session. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's our outstanding debt. You can see that our outstanding debt for the next several years is projected to be relatively flat. And you can also see on this chart that our debt was increasing in 2016 through 2019, which is a reflective of our debt bubble. We'll talk about that on our next slide. And I'd also point out that we peaked with our outstanding debt in 2018. So we are projecting $1.2 billion in outstanding debt for the next several years. And one thing I like to keep in mind is that we actually have a $7.6 billion total asset value. So we have a fairly reasonable level of outstanding debt. Next slide, please. Okay, on this slide, you will see our projected debt service change for the next several years. You can see that our debt service bubble goes through 2021. And after that, the projected debt increases will start to go down and decrease. This has been difficult to manage because a 3.5% MWC increase is around $9 million more in revenue. And all that incoming revenue is immediately swallowed up to pay our debt. So we've been using cost containment and strategic use of reserves to help with this. And as I mentioned earlier, we had healthy surpluses in 2016, 2017, and 2018. So we are fine using reserves because we are basically returning that money to our customers. Next slide, please. So we're always happy to share this slide. This is how our rates compare to other peer agencies. You can see here that we are a very good value. We're 40% cheaper than the national average, and the data here is from the 2017 NACWA survey. The survey is done every 3 years. So a bit of an update here. Dan Schuler, who's on this call, is working on the 2020 NACWA survey, and we should have new results for this early next year. Next slide, please. Here's our historical rate increases for SAC. The key thing here is that we haven't raised our SAC rates since 2014, and they are currently set at $24.85, as you may have seen on one of the earlier slides. We've been able to do that because of the robust growth in the region, especially in the past 3 years in housing. Single family has been healthy, and apartments have surged in the last 2 to 3 years. As we look out, we anticipate we will need to increase SAC at some point in the future, but we don't think we'll need to increase this rate for another 2 or 3 years. Next slide, please. Okay, here you can see that our SAC units have been recovering nicely since 2009. Year-to-date 2020, our latest numbers were down 20%, but that is flat to 2018. So we're still anticipating a good year, even with COVID. And that's because really right now we are still seeing development of housing. So we think it's going to be a good year, probably similar to 2018. Next slide, please. Looking at our reserve fund, you can see we are well above our council policy minimum balance, and we feel like we are in good position to ride out any COVID impacts. You can see from this slide that during the last recession, we really needed that SAC reserve. Right now, it doesn't appear that housing will be affected as much as the last recession, but there is still uncertainty in the future, and it's good to have reserves when you're entering a recession. Next slide, please. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we had our customer forums in May and June, and in those forums we had record attendance. Specifically, we had 86 non-council attendees from over 40 different communities, and we did solicit for questions before the meeting. We had a good mix of upfront questions and questions from the Q&A chat feature in the webinar. Questions varied from the impacts of COVID to the customer portal to how we do our regional bills. And after the forums, we followed up with a survey and received positive feedback, mostly very good or excellent in the responses. And due to the success, we plan on incorporating a webinar in our future forum schedules, even when things are back to normal. We also have a link to all the webinar materials and a video of the webinar in this presentation. Next slide, please. So the proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council adopt the rates and charges outlined on page 1 of the business item to be effective January 1st, 2021. And with that, I believe the next slide might still have Ned Smith listed, but we'll open it up for any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Selmeyer?
Mr. Chair. This is Councilmember Bethel. Thank you. Mr. Selmeyer, I just want to thank you. I was able to attend my first workshop a year ago when you held it over at the League of Cities, and I was so impressed by the presentation as well as the exhibits. It was a great opportunity to meet local officials. And while I was disappointed that we weren't able to have the in-person workshop, I found the online webinar to be extremely valuable, and obviously the great attendance has proven that. And I want to just applaud the staff for all the great work in putting it together.
I would second that motion for certain. I thought the webinar was fantastic and very informative. I have a question. I saw in the staff report a rate for temporary SAC, and I'm wondering, what is that? I know what SAC is. I don't know what temporary SAC is.
Dan Schuler, are you on the call? Okay, Dan is our resident SAC expert, and I'm not hearing him attending this meeting, so I'm uncertain of the answer to that question at this point in time. I apologize.
I bet Councilmember Wolf knows the answer.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. For industrial customers who might have ebbs and flows in their production, if they are having an increase in production that they think will be temporary, they can pay SAC on a interim basis just while their production is up, or they can do the permanent increase in SAC to always have that capacity available. It's a business decision and gives flexibility to industries if they might have just a short while where their flow is up, but then are going to be returning back to normal.
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments?
Wolf would move approval.
Seeing none, Councilmember Wolf moves approval.
Ziering will second.
Seconds. Go ahead.
Bento.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I heard Councilmember Ziering on the second, so let's go with that. And roll call, please.
Sterner,
Aye.
Bento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zarin,
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. A great job, everybody. And that takes us to our second agenda item, which is the Metroplant Polymer contract amendment. Mr. Ward.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Joe Ward. I'm in support services, and I'm here today to talk about an amendment to our polymer contract. Just a little background to start with. Polymer is a conditioning chemical that we use in centrifuges at Metroplant to help with dewatering. And our current contract was started in January of 2016 for about $9 million over 5 years. Oh, can you guys hear me okay? Sorry.
You're coming in loud and clear.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. Anyway, so we saw that funds were being depleted back in 2019. So in November of 2019, we initiated the procurement process, and we were scheduled for full-scale testing in March of this year, which is about when everything shut down for pandemic reasons. And so, in order to extend our funding and continue operations, I'm here today to talk about or to request a $1.1 million increase to the contract. The funds are available in the treatment plant operating budget, and the official proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council approve the amendment for Metropolitan Wastewater Treatment Plant, Metro Plant, Polymer Procurement Contract 15P142 for an additional amount of $1.1 million, increasing the total contract amount not to exceed $11 million. And at this time, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councilmember Zirin.
Why do we need an extra $1.1 million?
For a couple of reasons. So our contract allows for some inflationary increases. So we've had a couple percentage increases over the life of the 5-year contract. But in addition to that, over the life of the contract, especially in 2019, we saw a very large loading increase to the Metro plant. So our flow has increased, as well as the actual solids content that has been coming into the plant over the course of the 5 years. Like I said, especially in 2019, we saw it. So that's the reason for the substantial increase.
So I understand we just need an adjustment here to keep operations going the way they have been going, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Good question. Other questions or comments? With that, is there a motion?
Wolf moves approval.
And a second from Councilmember Zirin.
Seconded from Zirin.
All right, fantastic. Roll call, please.
Turner,
Aye.
Bento,
Yes, aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zarin,
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Thank you.
And thank you. Mr. Ward, you're up again for the bulk chemicals.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. I'm back to talk about processed bulk chemicals. And this contract is related. This is a renewal of a contract that started in 2016. And this is for our bulk chemicals that we use for a variety of purposes at all of our treatment plants. We started the invitation for bids in April, and we received 7 bids. And the purchase orders for the bids for each of the chemicals would be for a period of 2 years, with 3 one-year options to extend, assuming everything is going okay with the contract and no large increases are requested. Then we would go out for bids again at that point. But we have 4 vendors that to provide us with chemicals: CNS Chemicals, Hawkins, PVS Technologies, and DPC. The funds are available through the operating budget for each of the facilities, utilizing based on the chemicals that they use at each one. And the proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council authorizes award and execution of multiple purchase orders for 8 MCES processed bulk chemicals with 4 vendors, to include CNS Chemicals, Inc., Hawkins, Inc., PVS Technologies, Inc., and DPC Industries, Inc., for a combined total award amount not to exceed $10,900,000. And at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are these local companies, Joe? Or I imagine you can't, it's kind of a challenge to move chemicals across the country. I imagine they're maybe not, if they're not right in the region, they're pretty darn close. Is that right? Or
Mr. Chair, that's correct. The Hawkins is, I believe they are headquartered in the Twin Cities. The others, DPC I know has a very large presence here, but I believe they're from Houston. CNS I want to say is Atlanta, and I'm not sure on the PBS technology. So I'm sure look into it, but
yeah, no, that's good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions, comments? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Sterner, I'll move it.
Vento will second.
All righty, roll call.
Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zarin,
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to our fourth and final item on the non-consent agenda, which is a ratification of declaration of emergency number 62 for primary tank collector chain. The thing that stood out for me here on the staff report is, to paraphrase, they don't make cast iron like they used to. Let's hear more about that.
Okay, so my name is Dan White. I'm the Director of Maintenance and Security for ES. And so I've been working with Tech Services, or my group has been working with Tech Services and procurement to get this done. Business item number 2020-206. So it is ratify the declaration of emergency for the primary tank collector chain to buy chain for 3 tanks. The proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council would ratify the attached justification for and declaration for emergency for the primary settling tank collector chain for these 3 tanks. So we have 8 primary settling tanks at the Metro plant that removes solids, settleable solids, using a chain system that consists of chains, sprockets, and flights. The chains, and these are large chains. I mean, you wouldn't, to drag 10 foot of this chain around would be something you or I would not want to do all day. So they're very large equipment. The chains are prematurely failing and require frequent repair and replacement. And as you said, Mr. Chair, the quality of the chain is not that we can purchase now is decreased over the years. We tried to meet the original specs and was not available to get that exact same material that was installed originally. And so as we've ordered chain over the years, it's come in at a lesser quality, as we've seen, I'm sure you've seen with other steel items. Stainless steel is the new recommended type of chain to replace. That's happening. It's the best practice as it's happening across the United States. Waste treatment plants are switching to a stainless steel chain because it obviously lasts longer. It's more expensive, but it lasts a lot longer in these tanks and thereby requires less maintenance and more uptime. Tanks 4 and 7 require immediate chain replacement before winter. And then in order to make sure we have enough tanks running through the winter, a failure of a 3rd tank in the winter could be likely because of the type of chain. And so we're looking to get another set of chain in case we need that. There wasn't enough time left in this year to obviously go through the whole procurement process and obtain this new style chain and get it installed before winter. So that's why the emergency deck. And we have selected a vendor, Sinquisha Maxco, has this stainless steel chain available in their warehouse, and they have enough quantity for the 2 tanks we need, and the sprocket segments that drive the chain can be made and shipped to us in time. And so it's like a 2-week lead time to get the chain here, and then about a month per tank to get the chain installed. And so we can get this done before it gets cold weather in October, and we lose the ability to work in these tanks on a regular basis. So this is funded through the capital program, project number 805981. And if there's any other questions, I can try to answer them at this time.
These seem like real mission critical neat things that we need. No ands or ifs about it.
Yeah.
Questions or comments? Councilmember Zirin. Councilmember Zirin, you could move one of those big cast iron chains, no problem.
Maybe 1 link. Maybe 2 on a good day. No, I just have, Mr. Chair, I just have a question. What would the cost difference be between the stainless steel and what we could traditionally get as cast. I'm just interested in that, and yeah, speak a little bit about that, please.
I don't, Mr. Chair, this and council members, I don't have that immediately in front of me. I think Tim Amstead is on the call. If he has that information handy, maybe he can share it, or if not, we can get you that information.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm on the, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Yeah, this is Tim Amstutz. The costs are actually comparable. There's not much difference between the two. There's actually more competition now for stainless. And so it's slightly different, but not too much. It's basically comparable. The main thing is that life expectancy and durability of stainless is a lot better than cast. It's projected to last 15 to 20 years. So that's over the life cycle, it's actually a lot better of a product.
Thank you very much for answering that. I just immediately thought stainless steel prices going up, way up. But to have the service cycle, it makes sense. It makes a whole lot of sense. Thank you.
Great question. Other questions? Comments? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Bento moves.
Zirin seconds.
There we go. Roll call, please.
Sterner,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Zarin,
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Great reports. That takes us to our last item, General Manager's Report. Lisa.
I don't have anything to report tonight. I can tell you that we're still doing great on the COVID front in terms of operating, and we're trying to do things to make sure that remote working, since we're going to be doing this a while, the remote working could be improved. What can we do to do that? And just supporting employee well-being, because it's, it's up to endurance now to maintain the levels of effort it takes to go through your normal day wearing masks and distancing and following and temperature taking, all these things we're doing to try and keep people from getting sick in the workplace. But staff are doing great, and we really appreciate their efforts. So we're trying to also come up with ways to recognize them. Looking for clever ideas to do it differently, given again that we can't all get together and shake hands and do the things we normally would. So it's a challenge, but we're working through it.
That's a great idea. And I know that sentiment of giving a big thanks to everybody is shared by the whole committee. Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question. We used to get reports on whether all of the plants were passing their tests, but I don't remember hearing anything about that lately. Are we still passing with flying colors?
We are still have met all the permit requirements through the COVID. So we're on track to get platinum awards again. And the National Association of Clean Water Agencies is the organization that awards those. And they're doing their meeting this year virtual and kind of taking a different approach. So I haven't heard how they're going to deal with the distribution of those awards, but we should be getting another round of those here soon, because usually it's in July and they haven't done that yet. But we will be upholding our good record for sure.
Is that for meeting the permit requirements, or remind us what the awards are for?
Correct. Each of our plants in their permit has requirements of testing and reporting. And we get a platinum award when we have a plant that has more than 5 years in a row of perfect compliance. So in many cases there's thousands of possibilities of failing to either get a sample collected and reported or meeting the threshold of acceptable. And our plants are doing really awesome. I can say that there's about 350 plants that across the country that are using the EPA in the pandemic, opting out on the reporting piece. I think they're still doing a reasonably good job of meeting their permit requirements, but they're exercising that. We have not come even close to needing to consider that, and I'm thankful to the staff for that.
And if memory serves, we have at least 2 plants that have about a quarter of a century or so of annual permit compliance.
That's correct.
25 years, 26 years, something like that.
Yep, Hastings and St. Croix Valley. Still have to stop and think because it used to have a different name. And like, which name are we at? Dates
and knock on wood.
Organization.
Now that I said that.
What's that?
Knock on wood. Now that I just said that, right?
Yeah, it will be. We always, because it's so close to the top, we always watch closely to see if the plants that are got a slightly better record, you know, are they still hanging in there with us? But it's fun to see.
Absolutely. Anything else? Well, thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you all.
Meeting
Thank you.
adjourned.